At the beginning of the movie, an old woman is shown sitting and doing some needlework. In front of her, a TV is playing, where another elderly woman is sharing the horrifying incidents from her past. She talks about how, during World War II, the Japanese army committed brutal acts to satisfy their sexual desires. As this old woman listens to the story on TV, she suddenly stops her stitching and appears deep in thought. This moment takes us straight back to the year 1943, into the terrifying past of South Korea. At that time, the chaos of World War II had spread everywhere. In the midst of this, a young girl named Jung-min lives in a small village. She is seen playing hide-and-seek with her friends. Just then, a military truck full of soldiers passes by them. One of the soldiers looks at the girls and smiles in a strange, unsettling way. The next day, Jung-min is playing gongi with the same friends. Both of her friends have amulets, which people in Korea during that time used to carry with them. There was a common superstition that these amulets protected them from all kinds of evil and misfortune. Jung-min's friends always carried their amulets, but she didn't have one. So she made a bet. Whoever lost the game of gongi would have to give their amulet to the winner. If she lost, she promised to give them her chocolates instead. The game begins, and in the end, Jung-min wins. She happily takes her friend's amulets in her hands and starts walking home with a big smile on her face. But her poor friends, in tears, follow her and beg her to return their amulets. Ignoring their pleas, Jung-min runs off toward home. On the way, she runs into her father, and the two of them laugh and sing joyfully as they head home together. But back at home, her mother is waiting, furious, because she has already heard that Jung-min took her friend's amulets and refused to return them. In anger, her mother demanded the amulets from her and told her to return them, but Jung-min stubbornly refused to give them back at any cost. Frustrated, her mother beat her legs with a stick. The poor girl ended up with big red bruises and painful wounds. Later that night, feeling emotional and guilty, her mother gently applied medicine to the same wounds she had caused. With tears in her eyes, she apologized to Jung-min. She stayed awake the entire night, working on making a protective amulet for her daughter. At that time, the Japanese army had taken control of villages across Korea. They would often capture innocent Korean people and kill them without mercy. Because of all this, Jung-min's parents were constantly worried. A few days later, after playing with her friends, Jung-min returned home. But as she entered, she saw a few Japanese soldiers inside. The moment her mother noticed Jung-min, she subtly signaled her to leave immediately. But poor Jung-min couldn't understand the meaning of her mother's gesture. She had no idea what was going on. In reality, the Japanese soldiers were there looking for her. When they saw Jung-min, they quickly told her to pack her belongings and get ready to leave. Both helpless parents fall to their knees, crying and begging the soldiers for mercy. But the Japanese army is ruthless and unmoved. Using the excuse of packing her belongings, Jung-min's mother quickly slips a little money into her hands and quietly tells her to hide it. She gently reminds her daughter that no matter how big the trouble in life may be, she must never give up. She tells Jung-min to remember her father's name and their village clearly, so that one day she can find her way back home. Both mother and daughter hug each other tightly and cry their hearts out. Just before Jung-min is taken away, her mother places the same amulet, the one she had stayed up all night to make, into her hands. Against their will, her parents are forced to say goodbye to their beloved daughter. On the train, there are many other girls like her, young and innocent, none of whom know where they're being taken or why. Those little girls sit in silence and confused. They are completely unaware of the horrors that await them. Jung-min starts talking to the girl sitting next to her. Her name is Young-hee. She is 15 years old, and her mother had passed away shortly after she was born. As they continue sharing their stories and fears, the two girls gradually grow close and become good friends. After several days of a long and exhausting journey, all the girls are finally taken off the train in China, which at that time was also under Japanese military control. As soon as they arrive, the Japanese soldiers welcome the frightened girls with lecherous and unsettling gazes. From there, the girls are transported by truck to a military camp and made to sit together in a single room. A little while later, a Japanese woman walks in and begins calling them one by one, asking each girl her age. The room is silent, heavy with fear. No one knows why their age is being asked, but deep down, they all sense something is terribly wrong. Some of the girls are 15, some are 16, and others are 17 years old. Jung-min is the youngest among them, just 14. Suddenly, the soldiers forcefully take Jung-min away and bring her to a doctor to check whether she is still a person. Jung-min doesn't understand what's happening to her. Scared and confused, she starts crying. After the examination is over, they bathe her thoroughly, clean her up, and then take her to a separate room where she is kept alone, frightened and helpless. Late at night, the drunken commander of the Japanese army entered Jung-min's room. In reality, everything, the medical checkup, the forced bath, and her isolation, had been part of a horrifying preparation just for him. The moment she saw him, Jung-min was gripped by fear and backed away into a corner of the room. But that monster wasted no time. He lunged toward her like a predator. Jung-min tried desperately to fight back. He overpowered her, struck her harshly, and in the face of such cruelty, the terrified child eventually lost consciousness. That night, her innocence was stolen, and her world changed forever. In the other rooms, the same horrific fate was unfolding for the rest of the girls. Terrified and helpless, they tried with all their might to resist, pleading, crying, begging for mercy. But the monsters showed no remorse. Without a shred of humanity, they carried out their cruelty, shattering the bodies and souls of those innocent teenage girls. A few days later, a group of Korean raiders attacked the Japanese army stationed outside the camp. However, the Japanese soldiers were armed with superior weapons, and they quickly gunned down all the Koreans in a single strike. Meanwhile, Jung-min lay on her bed in a severely ill condition. Suddenly, she heard the sound of the door opening. Without even looking at who it was, she sat up, ready to offer her services. Because to her, the sound of the door opening could only mean one thing. She had to satisfy someone's lust again. But the soldier who entered, named Danica, had come not to use her, but simply out of curiosity, to see what had happened to her. Seeing her condition, Danica told her that she didn't need to get up. He said that Jung-min was just a little girl, about the same age as his own younger sister. When Danica asked her name, Jung-min's mental state was so broken that she couldn't even remember her own name at that moment. After such a long time, someone had finally asked her who she was. Overwhelmed with emotion, tears began to stream down her face. Slowly, the days of torture began to pass for the girls. From time to time, they were taken outside to a pond nearby. The faces, arms, legs, and entire bodies of the girls were covered in red wounds, each one telling the silent story of the cruelty they endured every single day. One of the girls even lost her mental balance. One day, her own brother, now a soldier in army uniform, entered her room. When the other soldiers found out about this, they brutally tortured and killed him right in front of her eyes. From that day on, she lost her grip on reality. There were brief moments when the girls laughed and talked to each other, trying to forget their pain. But those moments didn't last long. Soon, the memories of their past lives, of their mothers and fathers, would return. Days continued to pass in the same horrific manner, but for the girls who were repeatedly raped, life had become unbearable. Some of them were assaulted every 10 minutes. One soldier would leave the room, only for another to enter immediately and force himself on the same girl. It was an endless cycle of torture. Their suffering knew no limits. There was no one to understand them, no one to listen to their pain. The soldiers were so vile, so monstrous, that they didn't even spare the girls during their periods, inflicting pain upon pain without a shred of mercy. And after all this, the girls were still forced to do heavy labor outside, regardless of their physical state. One day, amid all this, Jung-min saw a small window of hope. She whispered to her two closest friends that she had heard rumors that the war situation might soon improve, so she told them they had to be ready, to find the right moment and escape from this nightmare. Danica, the only Japanese soldier with a kind heart, one day secretly gave Jung-min a map to help her escape. That very night, Jung-min, Young-hee, and two of their friends made a plan and managed to escape from the camp. They had only gotten a short distance away when, unfortunately, the army found out. Soldiers were immediately sent out to search for the runaway girls. During the chaos, one of the girls got separated from the group. The soldiers caught her on the road and began beating her brutally, and the other three girls, hiding nearby, witnessed it all. Seeing this, Jung-min whispered that they should return to the camp, Otherwise, because of them, the soldiers would punish and kill the rest of the girls in the camp. After that, the 3 girls returned to their room, but it changed nothing. As punishment, and to set an example, all the girls were forced to stand outside in the freezing cold night without any clothes. They were left to suffer in the bitter cold, trembling and in pain. The soldiers told them that they were not human beings, but merely objects meant for use and pleasure. As they said this, they beat the girls mercilessly. The girls couldn't resist. This had become their new reality, a life they were forced to accept. But the story of their torment and inhuman suffering didn't end there. The girls who were too sick or no longer of any use to the army were loaded into a truck and taken to a desolate, remote area, where they were executed one by one with gunshots. Among the soldiers was Donica, who couldn't bring himself to shoot those helpless, innocent girls. His act of compassion enraged a fellow officer, who then shot Donica and threw his body among the corpses. After that, all the bodies were doused in oil and burned together in one horrifying fire. Nearly 2 years later, in 1945, a great disaster struck Japan. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki finally forced the nation to surrender before the entire world. With Japan's surrender, an immediate order was issued for all soldiers stationed abroad to return to their homeland. But before leaving, the army loaded the remaining girls into a truck, taking them to the same kind of remote area where they planned to shoot and kill them all. The reason was simple. If these girls survived, the world would come to know the horrific, inhumane crimes the Japanese army had committed. At that moment, Jung-min tearfully handed her friend Young-hee a small amulet, the last keepsake from her mother, and said, "This will protect you." Soon after, all the girls were forced to sit on the ground as the Japanese soldiers aimed their rifles at them, ready to open fire. But just then, the Korean army arrived with their forces. A fierce battle broke out between the Japanese and Korean troops, with gunfire exchanged on both sides. In the chaos, many girls were killed, but several managed to escape. Among the few who survived and fled far from the scene were Jung-min and Young-hee. They ran as fast and as far as they could, finally reaching a place where they felt a moment of relief, a flicker of happiness. But that moment was short-lived. Out of nowhere, a wounded Japanese soldier appeared and launched an attack on them. During the attack, Jung-min was badly wounded. Just as the Japanese soldier was about to kill her, a Korean soldier arrived from behind and shot him, saving her life. The Korean army then began to escort both girls to safety, but as they were leaving, Jung-min turned around, only to see the same Japanese soldier rise again, aiming his gun at Young-hee. Without a second thought, Jung-min threw herself in front of her friend, taking the bullet meant for her. As her breathing grew shallow and her life began to fade, a faint smile appeared on Jung-min's face. Despite the pain, she felt peace, knowing she had saved the life of her dearest friend. Young-hee held Jung-min in her lap and wept uncontrollably, calling out her name. But Jung-min's heartbeat had already stopped. Her soul had quietly slipped away. The story then transitions to the present day, 1991, where we once again see the elderly woman shown in the opening scene. She is, in fact, Young-hee, now much older. Her friend is someone who practices spiritual rituals and knows how to connect with the souls of the departed. Together, Young-hee and her friend perform a powerful ritual, hoping to bring peace to the souls of all the young girls who were tortured and killed by the Japanese army. At last, their prayers succeed. The spirits find peace, and one by one the lost souls return to their rightful place, finally free, finally home.